By popular demand, we are getting back to basics as we cook up this little series called Radio DJ 101. Because come on, even Michael Jordan will tell you this, you gotta master the fundamentals before you can actually become a master at anything. I'm Jeff, the Radio DJ dude, and we're gonna crack into some basics of the Radio DJ software. We're gonna get into its basic features and functionality, but I'm gonna sprinkle in some tips and tricks too, to even make you a better internet broadcaster. So if you're ready for this little dose of tomfoolery, well, put on your crash helmets. We are tackling rotations and how to get the best on-air sound. Let's just dive right into what the heck are rotations in Radio DJ. The simplest definition, they're automated playlists that select songs and other elements based on a set of custom rules that you program. Okay, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Fine, we can dive deeper. I'll give you a little more info. So zooming out, if you're rocking a radio station with Radio DJ, you really have three main ways to run your thing. One is to create custom playlists where you're dragging songs and jingles and building your hours like that. Well, of course you wouldn't do that by hand. There's plenty of other pieces of standalone software that will create playlists based on rotations. Then you can go in and hand edit these playlists if you didn't like a particular song that was selected, for instance. If you're a station that actually has a staff, then yeah, this is something to consider. I think this is more relevant to a station playing newer music where you always have to stay on top of the power hits and the recurrents and all that, making sure just the right song plays in the right position. But if you're running a decade-based radio station, that's a heck of a lot of work for not a lot of return. For my all-80s station, Triple X80s, or really any other decade-based station, the greatest magic trick is a rotation. And they're just perfect for any automated station. Because once you kick in AutoDJ, it then populates your playlist with all the songs and other audio elements based on the rotation rules that you've already set up. And while rotations are number 3 in my list, the other way you could pump out content for your station is actually just to do it by hand in the search bar where you're dragging in songs one by one, kind of like a playlist, but it's live. And to hear my thoughts on this, cue the sound effect. Yeah, exactly. So the point of this video is to get your feet wet with rotations. And heck yeah, we're going to splash around and get muddy. Here's an example of one of my rotations. I have many, and this is something to think about. Because we're trying to create a unique listening experience for our beloved listeners, it's good to mix it up. Variety has to be the order of the day. So instead of rolling the same rotation every hour, mix it up. I think I have about 4 or 5 different rotations that run. And I rotate them throughout the day using events. As you see in this rotation, I have a feature called the Decade Double Play. And this is being called up with a SQL query, track from SQL query. But that feature does not come up in every rotation. For example, in this rotation, I have a special movie liner feature that comes up. Also a cheesy flashback segment. So every hour is a little different. And I think that's really important. But before you can build 4 rotations, you got to do 1. So let's do that. Let's start by looking at this simple rotation. To me, there are really 3 parts of rotations: music, production elements, and voice tracks. But since I run my voice tracks over song intros, I keep them in the music bucket. But each one of those parts should have its own personality, because the only product we have to offer is our sound. So it better be fresh and fun and different. And the one way to accomplish that is with your production elements, because those are the little gems that they can't find anywhere else. This music, if you run an 80s based station, oh my God, a listener has 1,853 other choices for 80s based internet radio stations. You're not differentiating yourself with the music because those songs are available everywhere else. But your unique value offering is your personality. The personality in your voice tracks, if you use those, the personality in your jingles, your sweepers, any little feature that you produce, that's how you position yourself above the rest. How is that relevant to rotations? Well, before you start plugging things in, you have to have things to plug in. So you have to have some jingles or liners or sweepers. Always keep that in mind. But let's get the microscope out and go line by line. You'll see to the left categories. And mine mainly are music and jingles. I have a track by Query. This is a simple rotation. My hour usually starts off with a top of the hour ID, which is triggered by an event. So you won't see that on the rotation. So after the top of the hour ID runs, it kicks the first song. And this entry is saying, pull a track from the music category, subcategory 80s, genre top 40, mood high. And there's other options here that I'm not using. I don't want a sweeper to play because this song is coming on right after the top of the hour ID. And very important, selection mode. How is RadioDJ choosing the songs? While least recently played is my secret sauce to getting a really good sound, I get it. If you're running a station that maybe plays newer songs, all the hits, you may want to also consider by priority. But if you do that, then you have to set priority rankings for each song that you import and then stay on top of them. As a song's popularity wanes, you have to obviously lower the priority. But that is another selection mode that is in your toolkit. Let me direct your attention to line 20, least times played. See, this is when I was experimenting. I don't use least times played anymore because let's say you've just imported 8 new songs. Well, RadioDJ is going to make sure to prioritize those 8 new songs anytime it's pulling a song. So least recently played is the way to do it, but definitely avoid random. I wouldn't trust the computer to be an experienced music director, and the choices it makes are suspect, and sometimes they don't even follow the repeat rules. But before we can go much further with our rotation discussion, we have to spend a little time on music genre. What buckets are you placing your songs in? And for me, it's pretty simple. My big buckets are top 40, which are more upbeat songs. I have a pop mid category, which more mid-tempo and slow. I have a rock, duh. And I have a hip-hop category, which kind of encompasses hip-hop, R&B, and some light rap. And then, of course, Christmas and Halloween, but they're not relevant for the other 11 months of the year. So I'm using 4 genres to create my rotations. Here's the thing with having a ton of genres. You need to have a bunch of songs to put in each bucket. Because if you don't have enough songs stuffed in each genre, well, that could get really repetitive sounding on the air because RadioDJ won't have enough songs to choose from. So your listeners may end up hearing that same song in that same position in an hour, every hour. Okay, back to the action. So we already know, first song is 80s top 40. And because my background mainly is in top 40 radio, it is so important when you kick off your hour after your upbeat top of the hour ID, you better hit your listeners with something slamming and jamming. No power ballads, no sickeningly sweet tear jerkers after your top of the hour. So I make sure to hit them with something peppy, with some high energy. And by selecting high under the mood selector, that'll ensure listeners are treated to a peppy little number. But in order to have this option, you have to designate a mood descriptor to the songs when you import them. Up next, a jingle will be played from the subcategory station jingles. You see, I have a lot of different subcategories for jingles, and that's the only rule I'm giving. I don't have any other properties I'm selecting. So just pull a station jingle, least recently played, and slip it into the mix. And then after that jingle plays, I want another 80s song from the top 40 genre, but don't worry about the mood. Any song from top 40 is fine. Okay, coming up next, I'm playing another piece of 80s music, top 40, but look over here, sweeper start. What? I've done a video on how you can kind of hack RadioDJ with your own voice track system, and it's been very successful for me. And it's basically using sweepers as voice tracks. And to delight your senses, magically up in the right-hand corner, there's a link to that video. But it go a little something like this. When I import all my songs, I throw them into the mixed gender category if the song intro is over 16 seconds. Now, there's plenty of other properties here you could use. You could use start type for that. But I get into details in that video. And I'm telling it to play this sweeper or voice track at the beginning of the song. you see here with the start designation. Other settings include without a sweeper, so it just plays a song without a sweeper. Intro. This is interesting. This will try to time your voice track so it hits the intro post of the song. Usually that's not recommended. Let's say you have a song with a 30-second intro. Your voice track's 8 seconds. So what happens there? The song plays for 22 seconds, then starts up your voice track. Doesn't sound very good. Now, there are some other workarounds, but in general, start is your best option. And if you're playing along at home, end means it'll trigger your sweeper at the end of the song. Now, I did an exhaustive test on the best settings for sweepers to prevent train wrecks. And yes, I definitely urge you to check that video out. But the real beauty of the system is by programming every song with an intro of 16 seconds or more to a category, for me it's gender mix, I'll never have a situation where my sweeper or voice track runs over the vocals of the song, because all my voice tracks are about 15 seconds or less. So I'm guaranteed a nice smooth execution of that element. So after that, another jingle, which this is a jock sweeper. And then you'll see music, jingle, music. This query, like I mentioned, that is a special feature. Decade double play, which is an awesome feature that, yes, I have a full tutorial on how you could pull this off too. But instead of going line by line, just feast your eyes on the list on the left. So you see a pattern, right? It's jingles, it's music, it's jingles, it's music. And some hours you're going to find promos, features that'll pull up like a trivia game, and then the weather. This just wasn't thrown together on a drunken whim. No, there's a lot of method to the madness here. And while the music part looks redundant, oh, it's all just 80s music, no, you have to check out the genre because it does change up, as should yours. So after this top 40 song, I'm playing an 80s rock song, back to a top 40. Then we go into a pop mid, which is a slower song. And then we transition with a special like hip-hop liner into a piece of 80s hip-hop, and then back to top 40, then rock. So I mix it up. And once again, that ties into the old 80s cliche, variety keeps your favorites fresh. So when you're building a rotation, you'll want to think about what is the best, the broadest mix I can provide my listeners. So they get a sample of everything. So it's not just all upbeat songs, because that would get fatiguing. It's not all rock songs unless you are an 80s rock station. But even then, you throw in some power rock ballads to mix it up. To me, one of the most important questions you always have to ask yourself when you're building a rotation is simply, how will one audio element sound next to another? And what we're talking about here are transitions. Transitions are key. How you transition from songs of one tempo or mood or style or genre to another really matter. And they create the most, I guess, smooth, pleasurable listening experience. So be mindful of that when you're building your rotations. And a lot of times when you're going from one extreme genre to another, it's really important to break it up with a production element so it's not jarring to the listener. So for example, I'm going from a rock song to a pop mid-tempo. And if I were to just do a cold segue, that could be jarring. I'd get sued for whiplash. I don't need that. So I have this tempo change jingle that helps set the scene for a slower song after a very upbeat song. But ultimately, I think we're really trying to optimize for the smoothest flow and most dynamic momentum in our on-air sound. Before you even open RadioDJ, grab a pad of paper and a pencil and kind of map out what should your hour look like, how your station should sound for that particular rotation. You're going to play 2 or 3 upbeat songs before transitioning into a slower song. What kind of production elements are going to go between them? Do you have commercial breaks? Will you map all that out first? Then you come over to RadioDJ and you start building those rotations based on your notes. One thing I want to point out in this particular rotation, you'll see Jingles Rad Quests, which is a short promo that lets listeners know, hey, you want to make a request? Well, head over to the website. And then you see this entry, category request, and then just a little line for the subcategory. That is track from requests. So the cool thing about that, if a request did come in, it will play it in this position in a rotation. So if you advertise requests, well, you better play them. And this is a very easy way using rotations to make sure listeners' requests get on the air. Okay, let's build a rotation. Here's our blank slate, our empty canvas. How will we color it? Your options when you're building rotations, basically you could put in a track from a category, which is everything you just saw, a track from a SQL query, which is code, track from requests, or a manual event. Those are your 4 options you have to choose from. So we're going to start off track from category, music, 80s, and my genre will be top 40, and mood will be high because this is the first song of the hour. Least recently played, key, boom. First entry done. Next, we want a jingle. So we look for the jingle category and we choose a jingle. Do a station jingle. Everything else looks good. Least recently played. That's wonderful. And then after that, we want, of course, got to do another song. And after this song, I want to bring in a listener jingle, listener sweeper. And then I drop that in. And then a track from category. Let's say for this, we want a mid-tempo. Slow it down, baby. So, and least recently played is how we're selecting that song. And you just rinse and repeat until you have enough content to fill an hour. If your station runs commercials, then you won't need as many songs. But for safety, I always like to try to program 1 or 2 more songs than I'll need every hour. But even if you don't, we could only have 8 elements. And when it finished playing the 8th element, it will start again at number 1 and keep playing line by line the tracks that you have programmed in. But do you think that is an interesting station to have a rotation with just 8 elements? Ugh. No. So the more variety you can bake into your rotation, the better their listening experience. And to make your life easy, let's say you wanted another top 40 song, this button here duplicates that item. And it brings over the same properties from the previous item. That's an easy way to duplicate tracks. And then over here, you don't like something, you can delete it. This is important. You see this repeat rules? Your repeat rules tie into the repeat rules that you've already established under the Option tab and the AutoDJ settings you've already pre-selected. While you can override those repeat rules in the track rotation boxes, your results might vary. So for songs, I just stick with my main repeat rules, and I don't engage repeat rules for any other element except for music. Jingles, queries, no, they don't get any repeat rules because their big rule is least recently played. That's how they're being chosen. That's the only rule they need. Like I said, you have 4 options to pull content into your rotations. Now, manual event. I've covered this in a previous video, and yes, of course, I'm serving that link up hot and fresh up to the right. Don't put a manual event into a rotation. Well, let me rephrase that. Please put a manual event into a rotation if you want a sloppy on-air presentation. If you want the song before it to completely fade out, ignore the next start cue point, which you hopefully have already dropped in that song. Wait till it completely fades out and maybe there's even a little dead air. Then it'll trigger your manual event. No, not the best way to do it. In that other video, I give you the best way how to pull that off, so it's the smoothest on-air execution. Now, I'm not saying don't use manual events in a rotation. I use plenty of them all the time, but I use them in the most effective way, which is outside the functionality of the track rotation builder within RadioDJ. So when you're done, you better save that bad boy, save your rotation, and if you want to build on that, you could do save rotation as, since that one was called a special 1, this could be a special 2. So now you have a foundation to start tweaking. Maybe you don't want this segment in this rotation. And the great thing, you could move elements around. Let's say you want a listener jingle, but you want it up here. And you want to move the station jingle down here. And if you don't like this rotation, you just delete it. If you're looking to automatically generate playlists based on your rotations, well, that's where AutoDJ comes in. AutoDJ has to be enabled to create those playlists based on your rotations. And here's some of my settings. I make sure to enable it on startup and autoplay in startup because if the program ever crashes, when it starts up, I want the jukebox to fire up automatically too and get the music back on the stream. Okay, so Radio DJ is just restarted and bang, we're right back into the rotation where we left off, getting our station back on the air as quickly as possible. So check this out. This is an example of 5 different rotations that I've used in the past, but you see the variety baked into each one, so every hour is going to sound a little different. It's not always going to be a movie flashback production element right at 22 minutes. No, you won't always hear a rock song at 12 minutes after the hour. And that really needs to be top of your mind. How do you keep your sound fresh hour by hour? And even if you had 2 to 3 different rotations, I mean, that would at least infuse your station with enough variety where listeners really wouldn't pick up on the same pattern all the time. So once you create these rotations, well, how do you deploy them? How do you get them on the air? One way to load your rotations is up here in the drop-down. You pick the rotation and then... What happened? Rotations kick in and they activate when you switch on AutoDJ mode. You see that? Now it's populating your playlist with all the audio elements that match up with your rotation rules. But if you're running an automated station, you definitely want to use an event to pull this off. So take an example of the A Special 1 rotation that we were just looking at. So the event type is repeat by day and hour. I want this to repeat every day, which I've selected the days. And then I've selected which hours I want this particular rotation to play. And in this case, it's just 5 and 8. And you look at the event actions. I'm telling RadioDJ to disable AutoDJ, wait a couple seconds, clear the playlist, get rid of whatever songs are left from the old rotation, set the sweeper category to VTS, which is my voice track category, load this particular rotation, Special 1, and then load a track from my top of the hour category. So this is going to then load the top of the hour ID, wait 1 second, and then enable AutoDJ. And by enabling AutoDJ, it's going to start populating your playlist with all the songs from your rotation. And to witness this in action, well, we're just a couple seconds away from the event triggering, and this will clear out what's left of the current playlist, pop in the top of the hour ID, and then populate the rest of the playlist with songs and production elements set up by the rules in that rotation. Okay, buckle up, here we go. So you'll see it loads up our top of the hour ID, then our first top 40 high energy song, a station jingle, another top 40 song, and then we have the third song, which is top 40, but with a voice track or sweeper embedded. A key point when you're scheduling rotations or other special features on your radio station, you really have to keep in mind consistency. Consistency is king here. You have to make it easy for your listeners to find the programs that they love. So don't air 60s at 6 at 4 p.m. on a Saturday. Make sure that your specialty shows, your feature hours, that they actually play at the same time every day or every week. I mean, make it easy for your listeners to fall in love with you and listen repeatedly. Okay, you built a rotation. What else can you do with it? Well, we talked about the playlist builder. You can actually build a playlist based on a rotation, and that's pretty cool. So you can come in here and say, generate playlist from rotation, choose your rotation, and boom. Now you've created a 60-minute playlist based on that rotation. Unless you're doing that for a specialty show or a specialty hour, why would you want to do that 24 times? That's a lot of work. If that's the direction you want to go in, you want to look into standalone playlist generation software that also has the rotation functionality baked in. So you push a button and then it'll automatically generate 24 hours worth of playlists. Now, once you bake up a couple of these rotations, don't just, put them on the shelf and let them run for 2 years. I think it's really important to revisit your rotations every couple months and freshen them up. And that could be as simple as just moving the same items around, but just shuffling the order of your content within an hour really goes a long way for varying the online sound. And that right there is all I've got to say about rotations. Now, if I miss something, if you're stomping your feet and say, oh, I thought you were going to cover this and that, well, hit me up in the comments. And for a small fee of nothing, I will try to reply to you. And just like that, legions of internet broadcasters have been edumacated on the basics of Radio DJ. I'm Jeff, the Radio DJ dude, and if you dug this little Radio DJ 101 video, I'd love a like and subscribe for you. Thank you very much. And if you have some suggestions, what direction would you like me to go in next for our series on the basics of Radio DJ? Well, there's only one way to do it. Well, there's two ways. Send me a fax, or much easier, just type it in the comments. What would you like me to do a video on? And until I flicker across your screen again, please just do one thing. Keep rocking those mics all over the world.